So Bitcoin's all-time high sits right below $112,000. In today's video, we'll be talking about if you should be going aggressively long or if we should be expecting a potential pullback. If you enjoy the content, as always, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So on the charts, it's very clear that Bitcoin had a massive breakout after holding the 106.2K level as support 2 days in a row, getting the confirmation that we needed for us to know that we were going to make a new all-time high. And as we can see here, a fantastic breakout. Now, what is next for Bitcoin? Should you be going aggressively long, or is it time to potentially consider shorting the market? Hear me out. I know we're past all-time highs. Everyone is super excited, super euphoric, but my goal on this channel is to try to give you the most level-headed analysis, and today we will be looking at some of the two easiest trading scenarios. Scenario number one is if we get a repeat of 2024. What happened back in 2024 when we started to set this range for Bitcoin? We were chopping around massively, wrecking a lot of traders, as we saw with the current price action. Now, after coming back down, retesting a key region, we did explode to the upside past the previous resistance and then set a massive all-time high for Bitcoin, which was set this year. So, where was the opportunity to actually long this? Some traders would say, oh, you go aggressively long right here as Bitcoin is about to break out, but that is not the right play because you risk getting wrecked. The optimal opportunity to long this price action was actually right around here where Bitcoin consolidated for a few days. Now, a lot of your favorite crypto influencers might try to paint the picture that Bitcoin will just go up in a straight line. And for the most part, this is what happened. But we will always have some level of consolidation, even if it looks like we're going up in a straight line. And this is Exhibit A. As we can see, as soon as we started consolidating here, that triggered an excellent long to target the all-time high, and that would have been an extremely profitable trade. Now, what is the reverse here? Because a lot of people have been comparing this recent price action to what happened back in 2021. Now, this is not a pretty picture because we set a high, then we set a higher high, then we came back down into a bear market. I'm not calling for a bear market, just showing you both potential scenarios. Right here, we did have Bitcoin peak above the previous high, which everyone got extremely excited about. We consolidated below the range, and then we had a massive pump to the upside. But as I zoom in here on the weekly time frame, that pump did go ahead and get reversed back below the previous all-time high. Now, the reason why this is important is because no one knows for sure if this would have been a great shorting opportunity, because there is always a chance that price could have moved higher. But the confirmation was on the flip side when we did have that breakdown. And going back to the daily chart here, let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Sure, Bitcoin went ahead and wicked all the way up to around right below $70,000. However, when we started to break back below the previous high, we did have a moment of consolidation. And this consolidation allowed for an excellent short. So what I'm getting at here is we don't know if Bitcoin will go from here all the way up to $150,000 or if we can just chop and then end up going lower. What you want to wait for the confirmation to trigger a trade in either direction would be some consolidation below the previous highs or some consolidation above the previous highs, as we saw back in the 2024 range. Now, this may sound overly simplistic, but in my honest opinion, these are some of the easiest trades that you can possibly execute on. The reason being, once we get the confirmation, once we get the chop, say around here, right around $115,000, that would allow us to go ahead and move much, much higher, targeting a long quite literally to the moon, because no one would actually have a price target for this long. The thing is, you would be in significant profits. I'm not telling you right now to go ahead and long this market because we broke above the all-time high. What I'd want to wait to see here is if we do get that consolidation above the previous all-time highs, which on the chart you can see right here, we had the previous high wick all the way up to around $108,000. Then we had the next high right above 109K, and only recently we can see that Bitcoin is now at $111,000. If we start consolidating, it would likely tell me that we're ready for a move much higher. Now, where would be your stop losses in these instances? Because you can't just long the market or you can't just short the market without any stop losses. What I would be looking at here would be a stop loss right below the previous area of consolidation and right below the high. So, for example, if Bitcoin were to go ahead and consolidate, let's say we pump all the way up to $112,000, $114,000, and then we consolidate around this region over here. My stop loss for a potential long here would be back below the range, because if we were to get a nasty wick, it would likely hold above this range. If we were to just dump lower, then the stop loss would be hit, of course, to protect your capital. However, if we just chop around, as we saw back in 2024, there is a chance that this is just healthy consolidation before we go ahead and move higher. I will remind you, if I zoom back out on this chart, we can see we had several areas of consolidation before Bitcoin moved higher. We had it over here, right around 82 to 86K. We also had it over here, right above $90,000 up to 95K. And then we had it once again over here as we held key levels as support. So what I'm getting at is there's likely to be some consolidation before we can go ahead and move higher. And if you want to do an aggressive long, what I would be saying is make sure you have your stop loss right around these areas, and I would only trigger that long after we go ahead and consolidate over here to target much, much higher levels. Now, we also need to pay attention to the flip side here, because price can go in either direction and no one can tell you with certainty where we are headed. So if I were to go back all the way to 2021, how could you have just played this market? That would have been to do the complete opposite. So as Bitcoin jumped past its previous all-time high back in 2021, let's take a look at the potential short setup. That would have been, once we get this confirmation below, you would have entered this trade right around this level on the daily time frame, and you likely would have made a lot of money as the market goes down. Where would the invalidation be? Right above the previous high. Now, this might sound overly simplistic, but thus far this has been my approach to the market and it has been extremely profitable. Don't try to front run the price. Wait till we get the confirmations. Believe me, if Bitcoin is to go ahead and move much, much higher on this chart, we will get the consolidation before we move higher. Maybe the consolidation will come a little bit higher, perhaps right below $118,000. But at some point, we should get that consolidation if we are to move much, much higher. It won't just go up perfectly in a straight line. And as we saw, we chopped around several times before we went ahead and moved higher. Yes, Bitcoin is in price discovery, but for a relatively easy long, it would be to consolidate, enter while we're consolidating, and then you would go ahead and move much higher. Don't forget to have your stop losses. And of course, what I'm talking about on the channel should not be construed as financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, just telling you how I've been operating in this market. In particular, in today's video, we're talking about how to navigate these breakout trades. Relatively straightforward, but honestly, extremely profitable for me in the past. And this is my approach to trading this breakout. If you want to trade this market, you have the first link in my description down below, which brings you directly to Bluffin, one of my favorite exchanges. And in yesterday's video, I showed you some of the profits that we made, over $50,000 by shorting and longing the market. You also get a $300 deposit bonus if you deposit $2,000 to your Bluffin account. This is a free $300 that you can use for trading. It is the first link in my description down below. We also have Weeks as an alternative exchange if you'd like to use that. There's a ton of bonuses here. The first 100 users that sign up with my link get a $100 bonus, but make sure to hurry up because I believe that we're getting close to the cap for this promotion, and you can earn up to $30,000 in rewards based on your trading volume. Both of these two exchanges I use on a regular basis, and they are the first links in my description down below. Let's get back to the Bitcoin chart here. So I discussed the exact scenarios that I'm looking to trade in terms of using leverage. Now, in terms of my spot portfolio, I've been relatively clear that most of it is in Bitcoin, and I do have some Ethereum as well, because as we can see, Bitcoin dominance is still in an uptrend. Once again, though, I do find it pretty amusing to hear that everyone is calling for an altcoin season just because we have one red daily candle for Bitcoin dominance. We are still above this bull market support band, holding it as support. Bitcoin dominance is still at 64%. And if you're new to the channel, my basis is that we're likely going to go and touch 66% dominance. And if we hold that level as support, I do think that Bitcoin dominance could potentially find its way as close to 70%. Now, I'm not calling for 70% quite yet, but I still think that we can move higher. And why, you might ask? Because we are still in restrictive monetary policy. As soon as the Fed ends quantitative tightening, that is when I believe that we will likely get a sustained altcoin season. But it might take a little while to get there because we have yet to see the signs by the Fed Chair Jerome Powell. And in case you wanted to see what a true altcoin season looks like, let's move out of this Bitcoin dominance uptrend and take a look at over here back in 2021. Look at that collapse of Bitcoin dominance. This is when altcoins really continue to outperform. So if you're not necessarily a trader and you're rather a spot holder, then you would want to see something like this for Bitcoin dominance for your altcoins to really start to shine. The next thing I wanted to show you here is it doesn't seem like we're that close to a top because as we can tell, retail is still not here. What you're looking at here is the Coinbase app rank. Out of all of the apps, it's currently up, sitting at around 245. And in terms of finance apps, it made its way back to number 16. Usually when retail is flooding into the market, the Coinbase app out of all of these apps can find its way all the way up to the top 20. So there is still very much a ways to go, and I will make sure to keep you updated as this develops. To me, in terms of my spot portfolio, this tells me that we can easily climb higher because retail is still not here. Now, of course, you can't just look at this. We have to look at the charts as well, but so far it's looking good. A very nice confirmed breakout for Bitcoin. And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, it drags the rest of the altcoin market with it. So don't get surprised if some altcoins start to get some nice pumps. In terms of altcoins as well, let's take a look at the ETH Bitcoin pair as we normally do on this channel. And we can see that right now this weekly candle is green. We got rejected at the bull market support band. And if we can come on up higher and hold this level as support, then altcoins have a very strong chance to start outperforming regardless of the monetary policy. But the reason I'm pointing this out once again with all these circles is because we highlighted the amount of times that we had a massive pump by ETH Bitcoin only to go ahead and roll on lower. What you want to see is the confirmation above the bull market support band. We already discussed on the channel that right around this level, around 0.0175, was an excellent opportunity to actually convert some Bitcoin to Ethereum because I was starting to expect at least some short-term outperformance. The reason being, we tagged a support level all the way back in 2019, and it was highly likely that we were going to get an aggressive bounce, which is exactly what we got. The question is, do we trickle on up, hold this bull market support band as support, and then move higher? Or will ETH Bitcoin come back down, maybe make some kind of a double bottom, perhaps a lower high, and then go ahead and move higher? As you've probably come to realize, I track this chart very closely, so I will of course make sure to keep you updated on this one as well. Let's take a look at the stock market quickly because we can see that after yesterday's dump below the weekly and yearly open, we are getting a little bit of a pump on today's green candle. And of course, this is extremely positive for Bitcoin, sitting right below the current all-time highs at around $112,000. If we can break that level, we're likely going to go much, much higher. Price discovery is a beautiful thing. And that's why on the channel, despite the fact that we were talking about potentially coming back to this previous breakdown region, as soon as we got those daily confirmations above 106.2K, I was going aggressively long. TA is a beautiful thing. Anyone that tells you that it doesn't work is simply lying and they have never done it for themselves. Now, in terms of liquidity, we can see that there is a lot of liquidity here built to the downside because a lot of people are currently long in this market. This is why if we were to get some nasty wicks to maybe grab that liquidity, I would not be surprised. Speaking of which, we have our whale that we've been tracking. I know I've been tracking him over the course of my past 3, maybe 4 videos, but we can see currently that his Bitcoin long position is worth just over $700 million. Now he opened, closed in profits, opened, closed in profits, opened, closed in profits, and now he opened once again, and we can see that his P&L is currently sitting right around $18 million as I'm recording this video. He also went long on Sui, and that's currently sitting in just under a $200,000 loss, but we'll have to see how that one develops. And as Bitcoin is in price discovery, altcoins will have to take a back seat, waiting for Bitcoin to potentially chop around. If you want to see some short-term bounces for altcoins where they really start moving up aggressively, not only should you pay attention to the ETH Bitcoin pair, but you know the scenario that we just talked about where we would consolidate and then potentially move higher? It would be around this area. If Bitcoin chops around, say, for a few days to even a matter of weeks, at around $115,000, just as an example, altcoins would likely rip there temporarily before Bitcoin goes ahead and makes its next move, and we would be expecting Bitcoin dominance to potentially come down a little lower. But my base case in the medium term here is that it will be going higher. So even if we get a little bit of a correction like this, where altcoins can outperform, I still think that ultimately we will move a little bit higher. And that sums up today's video. I gave you the easiest long or short of a lifetime, so make sure you're paying attention. Of course, it's not financial advice, but that's exactly how I will be navigating this market if Bitcoin starts to consolidate at much higher prices. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.